All right, let's try this again, and we are going to analyze Charlie's back squat. All right, Dr. Jason, can you
Got
see
it.
that now?
Yep, I can do that.
All right, perfect. So we're going to analyze a little bit of back squatting with lighter loads, 405 pounds by 4.
Pretty light, yeah. Pretty light.
All right, so let's pick this apart. So on the descent, you'd imagine he's got a higher grip. I can't tell on that. By his elbow position, he might be a high bar, maybe a hybrid.
Yeah, maybe a mix of both. He's hinging like it's a low bar, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So now we're getting into full depth from just on the descent. Any feedback?
So I love that he's breaking at the hips. Tip I'd probably give him is to maybe sit into the front part of the squat a little more, so load the quads. So breaking both at the hip and the
So you
knee.
think he has a
That'll
heavier
just,
hip?
yeah, so it's very excessive right at the top. You see him kind of like shoot those hips back.
Yep.
I'd want the break to happen simultaneously.
I see. Yeah, because okay, so he's going to come, so he's starting at the hip right there, right? So what you're saying is you want to see simultaneous knee bending at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So he's coming straight down. That bar path will stay exactly where it's at. It'll just take off pressure off the lower back if he's not just doing this excessive hip hinge, especially with 405 on his back.
Okay, so now we're descending. What about rounding at the spine? Anything?
Solid there. I mean, he maintains that nice neutral back. A little movement at the hips in the very bottom.
But not bad, right? I mean, at
Not bad.
405,
Yeah.
and we don't know what rep this is, but all right. So now on the ascent, let's see what we have here. Right off the bat, what do you like coming off the ground?
Right off the bat, he's good pressure pushing through the foot, not too far back on his heels, not too far forward on his toes.
Yep.
Bar path looks pretty good. He does. I'd kind of same thing as the descent. Like I'd want him to probably load the quads a little more to take pressure off the back. I could see the back and the hips having a lot more force going through there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, what you're saying is like if you were to, he's getting a good rise on both, but you can see as he pushes up, he gets that hip to go posterior. So it looks like he loves loading backside, and I think we all do that like naturally, like because you always hear like you just make sure you sit back a little bit more. But I think that can also promote a little bit. It almost becomes a deadlift if you were to exaggerate that, right? Like you hinge your hips back, you're almost going to be doing an RDL a little bit if it's excessive. So really on the rise, it's not bad otherwise.
Yeah, I guess he's moving it quick too, especially for set 4. So it seems pretty light for him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So across the board, let's see here. That's pretty good with the descent and ascent coming onto that. Awesome. I love that. So let's go ahead and get out of this one. So what I'm going to do is let's move over to, I think at a higher load, he had a harder time with maintaining that. So let's go, I think 455 was his next move up. And you ever hit 455, Jason?
No, not on a back squat.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move this one out of the way, and then we're gonna come over this one, and I'll share this screen with you, so that way you can see it on this one. So the next one, let's go on to 455. All right, next one coming up, 455. It is a different angle, so we have to monitor that. Just remember, shout out to the gym. Look at that right there, branding right there. Can you see that? All right, perfect. So this is a little bit of a different side profile, so you definitely have to keep that in consideration. Interestingly, on what you said, he's got that posterior shift right there, right?
Right.
If anybody were to give feedback, you almost want to hit the hip back, but that knee bend has to happen simultaneous, right? Because now if you hit that hip back, that bar path is going to stay forward because it's going to give you equal and opposite force, right?
Right.
So as you descend, he has a little bit more of that front torso right off the bat compared to his last one.
Yeah, he's kind of doing. He kind of goes into a good morning position in a way, halfway down on the squat. I think if he just sat a little more forward on that and sat straight down rather than shooting the hips
That
back
would help.
first, he'd be able to keep that chest up a little higher and that bar wouldn't pitch out in front of him. So even coming up, he's having to do kind of a good morning to straighten
Let's
himself
see
out.
the second rep. This one's a little better, but he does. But on this first one, this is where you start to see that right away, like forward chunking right off the bat.
Right. And that's just that big shooting the hips back motion rather than having it happen at the same time. So hip and knees simultaneously versus one versus
And
the
I think
other.
it's easier to understand if you just understand like an accordion. If you just smash an accordion straight down, it just collapses. So squatting is the same thing. So if you can get those hips to go down and the knee to bend, basically have them accordion straight down, that would help get him to a point where he has less pressure on his back. Now this is 55 pounds, 50 pounds heavier, and he's still expressing that just a little bit. What do you see? The second rep. What do you see here on the collapse, on the descent? Anything major on? What about the spine, on rounding? Anything at the base?
No, I mean, that's neutral spine coming down. I mean, I like the second rep much better than I like the first rep. He came out of the hole a lot quicker too.
Yeah.
So bar velocity is much higher.
Right there, right in there, right there. Perfect. Okay, so then now what we're going to do is we're going to go and you're going to see this is what I think this is going to be the challenge right here, right? This right there is a game changer because you can see in slow-mo more than ever, that's hips back, then that's chest tall. If you can keep this momentum, but what you can see that hips kind of rock back and he kind of like brings his toes up actually just a little.
Right. So too much pressure on the heels.
Right? So this is like at the club type of stuff right here. Like we're in the club right there. But what we want to do, and this is all in theory, right? Like, you have 455 on your back. We're just trying to correct some small mechanics. And I think don't get lost in the semantics that this is truly, as much as possible, trying to get as good a mechanics as you can underneath the highest loads so you can minimize your pain. And I've worked with Charlie in the past. These are small things to clean up. So if we go hips back, you see that problem right there? What would you do to correct that? Dr. Jason, what's your feedback?
I mean, getting tempo type stuff, lighter loads, helping him to shift the weight forward so he's not shooting those hips back. Pause squats, lots of pause squats would be good too, just to be comfortable and then shoot straight up rather than having the chest pitch so far forward, so he has to do a good morning halfway up.
Yeah, because essentially everything looks good. Like him coming down right here, this looks pretty good, right? If we can have him accordion down, now he has accordion back up, but he's going to shoot those hips back. And ultimately, he just needs to practice getting out of the hole and even tempo, like you said, at lower speeds there. But ultimately, he's able to get that up. The finish here feels good, but this is the problem right here. He's doing a good morning, a slight good morning, right? Like he's using a lot of spine work here. So knowing the history of back issues, this is going to be the kicker here. So tempo, anything coming out, pin squats, anything coming out of the hole as much as possible, and practicing that, because you can see that right there. That's the main driver. Okay. All right. So at 405, he looked good. At 455, we're going to start to see challenges with basically the descent wasn't as bad on that second rep, but it really becomes the ascent and getting out of that hole. His breathing pattern looks good. He maintains it. His grip, you can kind of see a little lower. Low bar maybe.
Yeah, low bar. Yeah, definitely low bar.
Low bar is going to help facilitate that. So he's in a good position there. It really comes out coming out of the hole. And this is assuming like we don't know where we don't know like ankle mobility, hip mobility, like all these other things going into it. But if it was just a patterning issue where you're just working on straight mechanics from a alignment and mechanics coaching perspective, these are the ideal scenarios. And then we'd have to work with all the other things on the mechanical side of joints and muscle tissue and everything else. But that's it. I mean, that's pretty straightforward. So, if you want to clean up your squat, these are some small things to consider. We'll continue picking apart Charlie on a different episode with his deadlifts and in the club moves right here. Sorry,
Yeah,
Charlie.
I mean, overall, man, this is nitpicky, but
It's pretty good.
yeah, pretty good squat, strong squat too.
Yeah.
So
Very, very impressed. Thanks, Charlie, for letting us do that. Thank you, Dr. Jason, for your contribution. We're going to continue to do this. Excited to see some people's feedback on what things that they would do, but we'll wait to hear back from you guys. See you guys till next time.